Greetings viewers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to take a look at the old tow rig, my 2004 GMC Sierra 3500 equipped with an LLY Duramax V8. So as you may have seen in the previous video on acquiring the 2003 Forester, I said that I had some issues with the truck. The problem was actually started on Monday when I went to Augusta, Georgia to pick up the Crosstrack, which you might have seen that video as well. On the way down to Augusta, I had an issue where check engine light came on, going about 75 miles an hour, going down I-20. I was right about Lexington, South Carolina, and the truck decided to go into limp mode. And engine sounded horrible, sounded like the engine was knocking. I swear at first when it happened, I thought I'd thrown a rod through the side of the block. Really bad noise. Got pulled over, saw I still had oil pressure, so I figured I didn't have any kind of catastrophic failure. Luckily I had the my Snap-on Zeus with me. Hooked the scan tool up, found that I had an injector circuit problem on injector number 7. I think the code was P0207, going off memory, and there was another code as well. Got up under the hood. Checked the harness, everything looked okay, but went in through the troubleshooter, looked up the code, and I found that there was a GMTSB on the issue. And I'm going off memory right now. Let me look at my phone real quick. Apologies. This is GMTSB number 05-06-04-047C for check engine light on, and injector circuit code for cylinder 7 or cylinder 2. And this was issued on April 23rd of 2008. The gist of the issue is that the routing of the wiring harness for injector number 7 and number 2 puts the harness at kind of an odd angle or a tight angle. Long story short, that will allow the harness to either chafe the wiring or break one of the wires internally, causing a poor connection to that injector. When the fuel injector control module detects an issue with one of the circuits, it kills power to one of those, the injector it finds the issue with, to prevent any kind of shorting, any damage to the module, any damage to the injector, etc. And when it finds that fault, it automatically puts the truck into limp home mode. And limp mode basically kills all power to the truck. You can go about 30 miles an hour. I think it limits you to second or third gear as that maximum gear you can get into. And basically you have absolutely no horsepower, especially in my condition where I was towing a 22-foot car trailer and a car. So trying to get myself off to the side of the interstate and not get run over by rush hour traffic coming through Charlotte, North Carolina on Friday when it happened the second time to me was a real big pain and a safety concern for me. And I really came close to being involved in a collision. So that said, I found the issue. My issue is, as I said, cylinder 7. I was able to get back on the road, got under the hood, disconnected the connector, reconnected the connector, moved the wiring around, wiggled it around, and I was able to get the connection to meet back up. Turning the truck off and restarting the truck, if the fault is no longer detected, it will come out of limp mode. You don't have to clear the codes, you don't have to have the scan tool. So basically coming home from Charlotte Friday or Davidson, North Carolina with the Forester, it shut off 5 times, went in limp mode 5 times coming down I-77. Again, scary issue, but each time I'd pull off to the side of the road, cut the truck off, and unplug the harness, wiggle the harness around until I got a good connection, start it up, come out of limp mode, and I would drive as far as I could drive until that connection got bad again and it threw itself back in limp mode again. So we're not going to go exactly via the service bulletin. I don't have the GM repair kit with the new pigtails. Looking at mine, It's all electrical taped up. I'm pretty sure that someone has put the new pigtail on injector 7. I just believe they did a really poor job of putting it on there. There are no weather pack connectors or crimp connectors. And I don't believe that the joint is soldered just from feeling around. It feels like they just twisted the wires together and electrical taped it. So we're gonna go through pulling all that apart, see if we can get it fixed without having to order a pigtail. If I do need to order a pigtail, the GM Genuine one is about $33 on Amazon right now. I did call my local GM dealer, and my wholesale account, it was still like 50 something dollars, and I think retail those connectors are $110, which is absolutely insane. But and you know, companies wonder why Amazon's destroying them. I can get it on Amazon GM Genuine for $33, $35, whatever it is, Amazon Prime. I mean, can't beat that with a stick. So that said, we're gonna get over here, take a look at the injector. Probably gonna pull the inner fender liner out just to get in there a little bit easier. The TSB says to remove or unbolt your fuel filter head and move it out of the side to gain more access to get in there to that connector. So I'll probably unbolt that just to give us some more room. May not, depending on how much I need. And we'll go from there. Actually, real quick before we get too far into this, I want to go ahead and start the truck and run it and put it into limp mode so you can experience it yourself to see what it sounds like. Okay, so this is the truck running normally. I'm gonna reach back there, grab the cylinder 7 wiring harness, shake it until it breaks contact, and make the truck go into limp mode so you can hear it. And there we go. I just tripped out that circuit and the truck's in limp mode. All right guys, switching over to the GoPro real quick. I don't know how well you'll see this, but you see there's electrical tape all over the harness. I had to pull the conduit back for you to see that. But yeah, definitely someone has been in here before and monkeyed around with this wiring. I don't know if they replaced the pigtail or just spliced a broken wire. So we'll go ahead and get the inner fender liner out. Probably go ahead and take these 2 bolts out here and move the filter head back so we can get in there at that harness a little easier and have a little more access to film because it is really tight back here. All right guys, so here's what we got going on here. We've got the 212s removed, filter head swung down. There's a 10mm right there. It needs to come out to give us a little more wiggle room of the harness here where it's bolted to the valve cover. Here's the number 7 injector harness. So we got a fat bit here in the middle. I believe that's where they spliced in the pigtail. Again, I don't think they soldered or heat shrink the thing. I don't think they put any kind of positive crimp connectors there to secure the 2 wires. I think they're just twisted together and taped. So right now we're going to pull all the tape off and figure out where we need to go from here on making this harness good again. All right guys, here we go. Got the electrical tape off of there. It looks like this is the original pigtail. It has not been put into the harness in any way, replaced, but someone has stripped a lot of insulation off of this wire here. And they had this piece of, I don't think it's heat shrink, but it's some kind of, protective sheath, and they slit down the side and wrapped it around that split wire and electrical taped it. So I don't know if we've got some junk in this part of the harness where it's exposed. It wasn't weather tight, so it could have some corrosion in there. That could be our issue. Looking at the end of the connector, it looks like our wires are not seated in the end of the connector very well. Probably going to go ahead and order the new GM pigtail, snip it off right here past where the insulation is, and go ahead and put a new connector on it, and that should alleviate all of our issues with this cylinder 7 circuit problem because as we saw, just doing a wiggle test, I could wiggle the harness at this end and cause it to go in limp mode. So there should not be any other reason that we need to trace the wiring from the connector back to the fuel injector control module. It should just be isolated to right here, and at this point it's either the pins in the connector or corrosion has gotten into this piece of the wire that's missing insulation. All right guys, I put the truck basically back together. I did not cover the wire that's skint back here, but I'm not letting it touch anything so it's not shorting out. So I got the truck back running and decided to do the wiggle test again to see what exactly was putting into limp mode. This is the orange wire. If you notice, I'll try to get a picture up close of it, but it's got a really bad kink right past where the connector goes into the pigtail. And I believe the wire is internally broken there because I can wiggle it and get it to go into limp mode, whereas the wire that's skint, I can move it all around and have no issues out of it. All right guys, and we're back. We now have our repair part in hand. So there's actually two different part numbers available for this repair. The actual part number that's mentioned in the service bulletin to correctly fix the problem with 7 and 2. That kit's about $200 on Amazon Prime. I'll leave a link to it as well. The connector, instead of having wires come straight out of the back of it, it has a 90 degree, and the wires come at 90 degrees from the pigtail since it's at the very end of the engine there. They also have a more thought out harness. It has heat shielding on it. It also comes with new bracketry to secure the harness in place. For this, I went the cheap route and I ended up buying a single pigtail. This is AC Delco part number PT2183. You can get it for about 32, 33 bucks on Amazon Prime. I'll leave a link in the description of the video for this one as well. This is the one we're gonna use. But basically it's just a pigtail connector, extra long leads, and two solderless connectors. So let's go ahead and get into it, get this thing on, get the truck back on the road. All right guys, hopefully I'll be able to show this without getting in the way. It's kind of tight and awkward to get the camera in here to film, so just bear with me. Essentially what we're gonna do, here's our new pigtail and harness. We're just gonna cut this down. We don't need all of this length of wire. We're gonna cut out our old connector down to where we got good wire and basically just crimp the two wires together, put the new pigtail on, melt down the heat shrink tubing over the splice connectors and wrap it up and go. So not too technical of a repair, pretty simple and straightforward. So like I said, I probably won't be able to show you very well what I'm doing, but hopefully you understand, get the gist of it. We're gonna offset the cut on these just so we can stagger where the little butt connector splice goes. That way they're not side by side when we go to wrap the harness back up and it makes one big bulge in the harness. Again, apologies if I get in the way, block the camera view. Make sure we get down to some nice clean copper on these wires. Make sure there's no corrosion and crustiness in it. Cause some resistance and issues with our electrical connections. These are the provided connectors. Just gonna go ahead and crimp these on to the new pigtail. Make it a little bit easier when we get down there. Scrub her down, do a little tug, make sure you got a good connection. All right, now we got those crimped on. You can take either a heat gun or just a regular old lighter and heat these connectors up and get them to shrink on down. All right, now that we got the new pigtail on there and the new connectors soldered and heated up, shrunk down, we can go ahead and rewrap this in electrical tape and go ahead and put the conduit back over it and plug it in, reassemble, rebolt the harness bracket down here, that little 10mm, and then the 212s can go back into the filter head. All right, we've got our electrical tape on, zip tie back on, our 10mm bolt down here in the bracket, and connectors hooked back up. Now we can lift our fuel filter module housing back up into place and reattach it. Tighten these bolts back down. And that's it, we're good to go. All right, that does it for the repair. Now it's time to check our work. So we're gonna start it up and see how she runs. So as you hear, the truck's running as it should be, no limp mode to be heard. Gonna grab the connector, wiggle it all around, see if I can get it to jump into limp mode just to check that we have a good connection on the new pigtail we installed. And we've got a good connection, no issues with limp mode. After about 3 ignition cycles, the check engine light should go off on its own. If not, you can disconnect the battery to reset the light or use an OBD2 code reader to delete the codes that are stored in the PCM. All right guys, here you can see the old connector. That area where the insulation was missing, you can see that it's turned kind of green and corroded. There's a nice shiny copper down here that had insulation still on it. This is what was exposed and had that red tubing around it. Down here we can see the broken frayed off pieces of wire where that kink was in the orange wire. So just going through and showing you exactly what the issue was with the loose connection at this old pigtail. So with that said, that'll end the video. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.